Let's clap it up. We finally got halfway through the list of the 6 techniques that might be ruining your mix. We've done parallel compression, top-down mixing, and EQ matching, which brings us to the first technique of the second half, mixing in mono. In this video, I'll be explaining why you should never mix in mono and the problems that you can and will run into. My mantra for this video is never mix in mono, fix in mono. So what's happening, fam? Miami here with JST, and I've fallen victim to the technique of mixing in mono in the past. Are you guys realizing how many of these techniques I've fallen victim to? The hype train is strong with some of these. You hear that a notable producer does it, and all of a sudden it's implanted in your mind that if you change this one thing about your mixing style, you're gonna become the next Chris Lord Algae. In recent memory, the most notable person to do this with mixing in mono was Derek Ali, Kendrick Lamar's mixing engineer. The reason people do this in the first place is usually the same. If you mix something in mono, you will make better EQ decisions since you can't be tricked by stereo separation. Also, because of the age-old saying, if it sounds good in mono, it's gonna sound great in stereo. But here are my 3 biggest arguments for mixing in mono. Reason 1. Who uses mono sources to truly listen to music? Oh, you want to bring up phones? Are you guys pulling up your favorite mixes and jamming out to them on a phone when you have any other option? And to top that off, most phones have stereo speakers now, especially iPhones. If people are never going to listen to the track in mono, why would you make it such an integral part of your mixing routine? There's a chance that some of these elements might fight in mono, but it doesn't matter if no one's ever going to hear that. Let me tell you, ignorance is bliss. For example, right now, you guys don't know that I'm wearing checkerboard pajamas and some footy slippers from IKEA. And that's okay, because you would have never known if I never told you. And this is the case with stereo mixes 99% of the time. Unless you're mixing music for the club that has a mono sound source, I think you're gonna be okay. Reason 2. It's genre dependent. Let's say you're mixing a band like Flesh God Apocalypse. We all wish, right? There are a ton of elements going on that all need levels of separation, but on top of that, they've hired a full orchestra to come in and accompany them on their track. You get everything tracked perfectly, get ready to start mixing the orchestration. You even pull up that random chart no one can ever remember that tells you where the orchestra sits. Editor, can you put that somewhere? Yeah, there we go. You get ready to start panning and oh wait, you can't because you're mixing in mono, right? Even if you take a Derek Ali approach and pan things without even listening to them, are you really gonna trust that? There's a time and a place for everything. But in metal, orchestra or not, I think you'd be better off mixing it in stereo and just occasionally checking to see that things don't collapse when they're switched to mono. Reason 3. Achieving a balance. One of the most important parts of mixing is achieving a balance. Before you do anything to your tracks, you should start moving faders to achieve approximate levels before moving forward. Well, if you are mixing in mono and moving faders, there's a huge chance that once you switch over to stereo, your levels are going to be all over the place. This is usually due to phase cancellation when everything is forced to the center. It can be deceiving and jarring to find that everything seemed to be so perfect in mono completely shifted just by switching it to stereo. These are the reasons I think it's dangerous to mix in mono. However, let's be fair and add some of the benefits of fixing in mono. Number 1, EQ balance. Getting your EQ balance right is easier when you fix in mono. You can see what frequencies are fighting and carve out space while hearing the results of your decisions immediately. This will actually make you a better mixing engineer because you'll be able to spot out elements that are clashing with each other. For example, the kick drum and bass or the vocals and guitars. The faster you are at identifying these things when you switch to mono, the faster you'll be able to notice them as early as the tracking stage. This is probably my favorite use of fixing in mono. Reason 2, identifying phase issues. If you switch to mono briefly and notice that an element of your mix has disappeared, you're most definitely having phase issues. A common time this happens is when people edit guitars too tightly on both sides when it's hard panned. I know, earlier I said no one's listening in mono, but if your guitars are starting to disappear, you have an even bigger issue because it means that it's not as wide as it could be. And isn't that the whole purpose of double tracking guitars anyways? Yeah, always check this. And number 3, a strong center channel. Your kick, snare, and bass is essentially the backbone of your mix. Do you know why that is? They always fill up the center. And if you aren't feeling a strong glue of these when it's in mono, it's not going to be much better when you switch back to stereo. Figure out what you can do to get these 3 things perfectly sitting in mono, and it will translate to all sources and make for a strong backbone to your mix. So we ended up with 3 negatives and 3 benefits. I guess we could say that they went mono-y mono. Get where I'm going? Alright, cool. But for real, let's recap these. Negatives. 1, it's genre dependent. 2, no one listens to music that way. 3, achieving balance. And the benefits? 1. EQ balance. 2. Identifying phase issues. And 3. A strong center channel. My mantra still holds up. Don't mix in mono, fix in mono. There's nothing wrong with incorporating a mono check every so often to make sure that everything's doing what it's supposed to in your mix. Just try not to get sucked into this concept of mixing completely in mono because it just doesn't make any sense this day and age. I would be shocked if I could even buy a mono source speaker 5 years from now. And since this is going to be on YouTube forever, I hope somebody challenges me by posting a link to this in the year 2026. If I inspired you to try something, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. You only have to do it one time. And tap that bell for notification so when a video drops, you know the location. Until next time, I'm out of here. Mic drop! Except as engineers, we know I would never do that because it could get really expensive. Even if it is a piece of shirt. Later.